Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and City Council. Would like to call to order our second budget workshop, July 13th, 2021 at 6:06 p.m. There is a quorum present. All council members less Councilman Nahara is present. Good deal. So where we left off, we have Mr. Rogers to do his presentation of his capital request, and it covers several different areas. It'll be Parks Board as well as water and sewer, streets, etc. So I'll let him lead off. I do want to make mention to you, got several pieces of information in front of you there. One is a summary worksheet of the changes from last night, and then also you got a description of this was requested by Councilmember Romaro, and it's pretty much the activity of the Parks group. So, Mr. Rogers, it's all yours.
All right. We'll start on page 165. That's the water and sewer budget summary. That gives you an idea. You'll see we're going to have a small increase. We figure we're going to be purchasing a little more water from City of Fort Worth next year. Same thing, buy more water, you got more wastewater going down, so we'll have a little higher bill to the purchase the payments to the Trinity River Authority. But the revenues coming in are also going to match the same thing. Revenues are going to go up because we're selling more people using sewer, so we're selling more sewer connections and stuff. So those all went up. Probably the biggest thing everybody's going to look at and go, what's going on? We're projecting $146,000 in water meter installs, $100,000 in sewer line installs, and why we're only showing $40,000 and $20,000 respectively. And one of the reasons is we have no idea. This is, meters right now, housing's going great. Tomorrow, if something happens to the market and housing goes down the tubes, we never want to estimate revenue high, thinking that we're going to make a ton of money. We always go back to where we were the year before, kind of stay there. We'll see how the market goes. We're pretty sure 40,000, 20,000 we probably would make. Beyond that, if the market went bad, we might not get anywhere much more than that in a year's time. So that's the reason we're kind of conservative on that side of things. Trash collection went up slightly. Again, more houses, more trash. So those things went up. We've got, as far as our other operating line items, we didn't change a lot. You'll see, of course, the 235 y'all talked about the other night, where our transfers out that go over to the general fund, pay for our COs and our available resources. So those are all pretty straightforward. Then we got our admin, again, water and sewer admin. You'll see increases over there in salaries, which when we get to the detail, you'll really be able to tell that more. But not a lot of other changes in the budget, just that. When you go over to the page and you look at the reason for the increase, you'll look down there and you'll see all the increases in salaries, the money, because finance, we pay part of their salary, part of the billings. So we have a number of things. So those just the increases that are going up in those. And then of course longevity, all those things went up along with those. So admin's just that one line item up. Then we get to the more important stuff to me anyway. This is our operations maintenance funds for the water and sewer department. And again, you'll look at most of this on the summary page. No big increases, anything. We're showing, some other numbers as far as what we expect to spend probably out of for meter installations, but that also includes in here a part of the money that y'all put aside every year to update ones that are already out there in the field. So there's a little bit more in here for that, but it's not like we're going to make a lot more. And you'll see down here our water purchases. We're going up a little over $100,000, probably more next year, purchases from City of Fort Worth for our water, which of course, again, all correlates the same way. Sewer goes up because we got more going out. So we upped it again. It's up to $833 next year. Other chemicals and all stayed the same. We will see training going up because we are asking for 2 more people in this department. So we need more money for that. The biggest change you will see when you see in the O&M is $30,000 additional to the R&M for sewer fund. That's an I&I program, which is an inflow and infiltration program. It's where we actually go through and TV our sanitary sewer mains to look for water coming in from rainwater, mostly talking about. Sometimes you'll find some illegal connections, but usually it's rainwater issues. And this is something we've been off the schedule of. We used to do this about every 3 years. We had sections that we would look at. Mostly the most highly important ones are the ones through the creek bottoms. Here in Old Town, we have a lot of line through the creek, up behind Ashmore Farms, the meadow down through there. Again, the line follows right along the creek bed. So we try to go in, check those sections about every 3 years, make sure, and then we'll come back usually the following year with, now we have a program. We need to go back in and fix so many manholes, so many feet of pipe that might have cracks, or we found, you never know what you're going to find. You can find some strange things in there. But that's the big increase there. Most of the other lines you'll see are staying pretty much the same. Again, we're kind of undershooting, expecting that next year, because builders are telling us they're kind of slowing down a little bit right now, waiting for some things. So we didn't want to put in too much money to go buy meters and not use it. All the others, laboratory fees and all, are staying pretty much straight across the board on pretty much every other line item here. We did have, like I say, the increase in what we're going to do with purchases from Fort Worth and for the treatment at the Trinity River Authority. So that takes us pretty much to the last, all the way through on that one. As I said, we got the extra $2,000 for additional training for additional employees. Then we go to what's our shared accounts, which are our 99 funds, which we share partially. Half of this is done through the general fund. Page 183, and then you can also kind of, if you ever want to kind of compare the two, you can go back to starts on page 145. These two funds kind of mirror each other. There's some things a little bit lean a little more water side, some things a little more to the general fund side, but they generally kind of match. That's where a lot of the salary stuff, you'll notice this is where you will finally really see. You see one of those employees is the money's over in the general fund, 99 fund. The other one is here in the 99 fund in the Public Works water shared account, the 53.5. So you'll see that same exact number in both places. That's the coverage for the two employees split between the departments, since the water guys especially, they do a lot of water stuff, but they also are the guys that generally go out and fix potholes and do a lot of the other straight public works things that are not park or right of way. So that's what they do a lot of. Those longevity, all those, she gives me all those fund numbers. And our next increases in this entire account are, we're asking for an additional $4,000. We've kind of gone a while without upgrading some of the tools on our trucks. So our minor equipment acquisitions is for just anything, all little small stuff, but it's tools for the most part. And so we asked for an additional $4,000 there to kind of replace all the broken tools and worn out tools and lost tools. They're all of those. And uniforms below that, again, more people, we got to outfit them, and these guys get a lot more because we have to buy safety harnesses for all these guys because of climbing our elevated water tanks and things. And they also do a lot of going up on lifts, putting up Christmas decorations, and also changing light bulbs at Nance Field. Our only other real increase in this line item was we're adding an additional data plan for an iPad, so that increased it from $600 to $1,200 to add that other line in. That's the water O&M. And we get to go to the special funds. And we go to page 211, which will be the park board fund. And on the park bud, on their general summary, there's not a lot as far as revenue. The only real change is the matching contribution funds for the $1 on the water bill. That went up. We're expecting it to be a little higher next year, so they went up to $4,100 there. Same thing, you'll see that same number on the transfer from the general fund since the city matches that dollar. So that went up. The other accounts, they pretty much kind of bounced back to what they had done the previous year before we had last year's COVID event. They did go in, and in two places in the entirety of their budget, they asked for additional funding. They asked for, find it again. They increased their amount for Christmas in the Park by $5,000 since that event seems to keep growing and growing and getting more and more people coming every year. So they're asking for an additional $5,000 there. And then the Easter egg before had been $3,000. They are asking for an additional $500 because every year they increase the number of eggs, make the event slightly bigger pretty much every year for the last 21st year this year, I believe, because we didn't start on time and we missed one, so I think 21 this year. So those are the only real changes in their entire budget.
I don't see
National Night Out is funded under your the inner services. That's under that line item because that is solely funded directly to the park board's not involved in that. They come as they help out and all, but that is funded by the city. That is city, the only pure city event. It's all theirs. Park board doesn't run it. That one there, you get to thank Katrina for. That's her event for the most part. I mean, we help her, but she does an awful lot of work on that one. I think.
Real quick question on the current budget for this year on the Independence Day. It still said 25,000. Was that something? Or did we do something for Independence Day?
It's been pushed to. The money's going to be used for National Night Out. Going to do the same thing after the National Night Out this year. Fireworks. Yep, they're going to do fireworks after it since they couldn't do them on the 4th. Okay. They already had these guys under contract set to go. So they talked to them, and the guys were willing to move it to a different date. So they're going to have them right after the event. Okay. Yeah, National Night's always a pretty good event anyway, but that's probably going to make it a lot larger than normal. All right. After that, we have basically we go all the way back here to the back to page 302, and that's where this is all the stuff we have that are the big ticket items that we're asking for this year. Oh, yes, there's already, I don't know if y'all saw it, you have a revised sheet for that already? All right, we'll start with our south pump station.
Well, let me see, you said a revised sheet for page 302?
Page 302 should have some big, like this kind of big yellow highlighted.
Very good, I got it.
Everybody got it? So at our south pump station, during the storm we had this year, one of the things we found that we desperately need is to have a generator there also. We have a generator system over at our Harmon Road, our large pump station, but if we'd have had a generator big enough to handle the south pump station, we could have staved off probably just long enough on the boil, wouldn't have to gone to a boil water node, because we had water in tank, but no way to move it from those tanks out into the system and into the elevated tank at Harmon. So a generator would be a major improvement there to get us into that shape. Plus that we had found out that we have a automated valve. The automated valve currently today is down at our meter vault 3, which is down at the corner of White Lane and Bonds Ranch Road. Again, same problem. It's way down there, no power when the power was out. So if it was like Harmon Road, where the valve was up there by the tank, we could run it off the same generator. We'd been able to have water flow in as much as we could have from the city of Fort Worth. As it was, couldn't do anything with it. We couldn't control it, couldn't do anything besides try to go down there and hand crank it every so often. So we found out that was something that really was needed at that station. That station also is in needs of SCADA upgrades, which is our system control, acquisition, and data, automated data acquisition system. Yeah. And it's just time. It's getting old. There's a number of things. Plus, this money also will have to be used. We got a new station going over here that has to talk to that station over there. When we do the new tank over here on Avondale, so there's upgrades that's got to be made so all this stuff can talk to each other. Then we got our pumps. The ones, they're getting old, but again, we've designed all this stuff over here at LaTerra, but to get water to that tank, I got to have some way to move it over there, and I need the pumps we have in our south pump station. That's why this has been in the master water plan for so long, is we've got to have some pumps big enough to move it fast enough. These will move it, but it's slow. And they're getting to the point in life where it's time to do something anyway. So if we're going to do it, we might as well make the upgrade at the same time rather than fix these, go into a new deal, put in existing pumps, and then turn right around. In a year or so, we're going to have to do this other anyway. So we're thinking might as well just push it on now and go ahead and make that a project and do this entire station at the same time. We need the generator stuff. It's kind of do the whole thing and bring that whole station. That's the oldest station in town. Bring it up to standards where it would be a really good station. Because that's also the same station that we have the oldest water tank in town that does have some leaks in it. And that one's been scheduled to be replaced now for, gosh, we're going on probably 8 years, I guess, now that it's been scheduled to be replaced. And we think that's just the same thing. It's time to just lump that all in there and make a project out of that pump station. Get it offline one winter and just redo it. The other things are a lot, of course, smaller. We need some new, improved line location to use. We're doing so much line locating nowadays, trying to mark lines for all these projects going on, and equipment we got just old, wore out, but it's kind of expensive. Then we got $10,000 in here for our chlorine analyzer that's at the Harmon Road station. Is pretty much gone. It's no good anymore, and so it needs to be replaced with a new one. And as again, those things run quite expensive, 10,000 for that. We have to have a new analyzer, but it's also going to need additional plumbing and stuff for it, so it's going to be a lot more expensive for the Avondale water tank. So we can keep up with what our chlorine residuals going in and out of the tank are, so we can keep the water quality up. So those are big water quality items that we really need, is those things at both those stations, those chlorine analyzers. Now the fun thing is we're asking, because what happens now, we don't have a really good on-call system. Right now it's, okay, who's going to be around by chance? And one of the things that we run into is this being on call ties you down. You're not allowed to go off somewhere too far away. You've got to be able to respond back within a half hour or so. So it's a little unfair to ask somebody that, okay, you don't get to go out too far to go away to eat on the weekend. You don't get to go out and drink for sure, because you may be coming back. And you also got to sit there and answer a telephone whenever somebody calls, which happens a lot. Right now, that falls a lot on James. I do a lot of the phone answering, but he gets a lot of them too. But when he's out of town or somebody else is away, we have somebody else who does it. So we just some kind of a stipend. That's why we put this in here. It's basically $100 for whoever's going to be on call. That just per person, that's just one guy for that week. So $100 for 52 weeks of the year. That way they take what we would end up doing, we would pick one of the phones, we'll set that up as a total after hours number. And everybody would just, this week's yours. There you go. And when we do their paycheck, we show that they were the one on call, they get the extra $100. Now the fun one. Our vac truck, we currently have a vac trailer and a sewer jet machine. This machine would do both of those processes. The big issue we have is our sewer jet machine. It's 20 years old. It was used when we first bought it, and it was bought to handle Old Town, 6-inch, 8-inch water main, sewer cleaning, unstopping. Now we've got 15-inch mains. We got mains that are 35 feet in the ground. So our current unit, by the time you get down to the bottom of the hole and even try to go down that 15-inch main, you might get 100 feet before it's going to run out. It just can't run that far. It's not designed. And then we've got the new 21-inch sewer main going in the PRA line through the community park to serve La Cara, which definitely could not be done by that machine. It wouldn't even move a line that large. And we are going to be taking care of maintaining that line until Fort Worth hooks on something. We're the ones that take care of that whole entire 21-inch main. We've got to have something large enough, big enough that can handle it. And they cost a lot of money. They're very expensive, but it's something we've got to have. Otherwise, we'll be trying to call somebody in, which there's only 2 or 3 companies that do this anymore, that large. And they start charging the minute they pick up the phone and you're going to need them, they start charging. So every time they come out, the most recent one we know of, they were there for one afternoon, and the on-site was $6,000, and the additional coming out was nearly that much more to come and show up. So it gets very expensive to have anybody come out, and that was just to do a small job. It came out when you're out actually doing a cleaning of a main, that may be a week or 2 week long process from one end to the other, cleaning those mains. So you couldn't afford to do cleaning. All you might be able to do is stoppages. Is about the only thing you could hire somebody to come help maybe with. That's why we need this kind of machine, because it happens more often than I like, that's for sure. But we don't want to have any outflows. So that's a TCEQ issue that we get into. And that's the part for that one. Our next one that we're involved in is the Public Works capital request down there lower on the same page. This one is our getting new employees, and all. One of the things is right now we don't really have what you would call lockers. We don't have a place for people to put. We've got kind of cabinets. So with more people, right now we have no more place. The cabinets take up what room we got. We need something that's more locker style. We'd have it cool to get all their stuff in. So we looked into and we need to get some lockers for our building. Then we need, one of the other things that we found out during the storm was we get stuck up there and we don't have any place for anybody to sleep besides on the concrete floor. We have nothing. We don't have any kind of bedrooms, no nothing. So some kind of cot just to have around, because the guys go up every time we have any ice events. They're here 24/7 doing ice, putting out salt, sand on the roads. So it's just something we'd have stored away in a closet somewhere that if we need them, we'd at least have something where the guys could at least have a place to rest somewhat comfortable, better than on the hard floor. Then our heavy equipment trailer, the one we have now, again, it's about 20 years old and seen its better days. It's just time for a new one. We need a new heavy equipment trailer that we can move our bigger machines. New Bobcat that y'all authorized the other night to be able to move them around. The one we have now, it's still working, but it's just seen its better days. And then we have another. This is a SCADA upgrade to the Public Works building. We have an existing. It's our main connection to the SCADA system. Besides the fact it's getting old, it's outside, and we've come to realize it should be inside in a more controlled environment. The heat in the cabinet right now, we've had actual backup power supplies and all kind of start to melt. So hot back there, and that needs to be brought inside into the building with the rest of our computer systems all in there in a rack anyway. But we'd like to move this all inside and get it out of that cabinet. Then we're asking.
David, sorry to
No,
interrupt.
go right ahead.
So this, I had that circle. So the SCADA at the top is different than the SCADA at the bottom.
That's at the pump
Pump
stations
station, and that's
over here at this tank level. This one right there at our yard there on school.
Thank you.
And that's the next thing, which is, this is the other thing we have a major need of. We need some kind of plan, some kind of something for our yard. I mean, the yard was originally nothing more than a well yard. That okay, and then we added one little shop building to park a backhoe in, then okay, a few offices, but it's never been laid out fixed. It doesn't drain. It sits normally when we have a big rain, we drive through 1 to 2 feet of water to get in and out the gate, and then the inside of the yard is usually a mud pit for the most part. So it needs upgrading, needs something done. I figure this would be a start to get somebody in who could assess it, figure out what's the needs, and do we even have enough space for what we need? Is it something else? We might need something else. We might need more land, whatever. But somebody needs to start a design, an idea of what that needs to be. And as you can
that also includes a new facility. So what David is speaking about,
it would be big.
I've been out there to look, and it's very crowded, and it's just very substandard. I don't know if y'all been out there. If you haven't, maybe we can arrange a field trip, so you'd be quite surprised. Now, nonetheless, that let alone the yard probably needs double in size, but is the building itself. It was built in 1991.
Yeah, the original structure was 1991. The second structure came along in 2001 or 2002. So they're both pretty old. Been around a while.
And this would be, hiring someone like an architect that specializes in these type of facilities to do a needs assessment down the yard to help determine yard size, and also some of this very expensive equipment. And this is not the only piece, like this $500,000 back truck. It sits outside.
Everything
exposed
we have
to
is
the
outdoors.
sun and rain and hail and everything else. So we envision a you know, you see the shed roof like carports, that equipment places wow, is to park that. I mean, these are valuable assets that we need
Yeah,
to protect.
containment needs for like the sand and stuff. We have to keep on storage. Asphalt, we can't really store much in the way of coal mix because the size of the piles that you have to maintain that stuff. We just don't have the room.
But this $40,000 is just the assessment.
Just an
Just the
assessment to get
assessment
started,
to
because
get
this
started.
is probably going to be a major project down. You know, it's probably might be a multi-year. I don't know. It's probably going to be
Well,
something that's more long term.
I agree. I'm looking at our strategic plan, and the public works facility is listed as a medium-term recommended project, but there's not a design part for it. And a project total was 200,000. My question is, the funding source that we had discussed then was water fund reserve. Is that still something, like, why is it out of that instead
I
of?
would think for sure at least half of it ought to. I mean,
Are you talking about funding source for what? For the
Well,
design assessment or
Right,
for
I was
the?
thinking about, that's what was making me think, is this was from the water fund reserve just for the facility, so could it also be for the assessment as well? Marcy, is that? That would be something that could appropriately be used. I just was asking because I saw that as a funding source.
all right. Then we go to our street capital request item. First one is to move to a compact excavator, people call mini X, whatever, these small rubber track loaders. And part of that is, one, it's getting too hard to move a backhoe around, but the bigger issue is we've moved to curb and gutter for a lot of the streets and stuff, and these backhoes, you gotta have a lot more room. It's not like the rural areas in New White where we got a nice big wide ditch line parkway there beside the roadway to spread out. You got very little room behind these curbs before you're in the sidewalk, yard, front door. And so we need a smaller machine for doing work in tighter areas than what we have today. So that's one of the reasons, that's what we're asking for, one of those to take some of the load off the backhoe. The backhoe can get back to more of our rural neighborhoods doing work. Then the Bobcat, the T770, y'all have already funded that generously, so
Well, we
we
can
do
cross
not
that
need.
out.
We can take that one off. We don't need that on there anymore. The UTV, our current John Deere Gator is 23 years old now, and of course we use it for all the park events, as well as our guys use it for, that's what we use for putting out fertilizer and all. It's just pretty much seen all they can do anymore. It's not in too good a shape. So we've been looking, and park boards have been bugging us, when are y'all ever going to get something new? Because they use it a lot during the events, so they know what it's like to ride around in. I don't think they're keen on riding in it as our guys are. No, it's a gasoline powered. The one we have currently is an actual John Deere Gator. As I say, it's from 23 years ago. We'd be looking at, it doesn't matter the brand, we don't care. But it does, the gas is mainly because of the distances we go from places, and the fact that it gets hauled around. Then we've got, as far as pavement jobs, we are looking at White Lane. We've been on White Lane there from the hill where it drops off the hill there up and around the Bain Road. The road is in fairly poor shape. It needs a lot of work, and so we're asking to repave that section. I will say that also, county ILA ideas are coming up soon. We got to do those before the end of this month to get them into them, to see if they can come back. We've done it before. It's not the easiest thing to get them to consider a residential street, but they did it with some parts of Bain. They've already done a portion of White Lane already. They kind of lean towards it. Kind of connects Bonds Ranch, kind of connects to 156. So it's all about selling it to them. Long, they kind of know. So that might be something we could put in as a project to Iola, to the county for ILA, and see what they might come back for cost with. And we just went with what it would cost. We go out on to do it. And the same thing for the other section from White Lane from Bain down to Bonds Ranch Road is in about the same shape. They're both got some areas that are really poor and need some improvement. So we were asking for them, but like I said, those could also be ILA projects. The other one that we're asking for pavement-wise is in Ashmore Farms. We're right on this edge in Ashmore Farms right now from the last time we did a slurry seal up there. If we get it now, we'll probably, we've gotten nearly 15 years out of the slurry seal we did. So, it was a very good investment because it's fairly inexpensive. And so we thought we might ought to take the opportunity to maybe try to do that as soon as we could. So we're asking, that's another item that we're asking for.
Can you explain a little bit by, doing the slurry seal as to what it does and how it prevents failure of the road?
It's a thin layer. It's got sand in it. It's a gritty type sand emulsion material, so it's sprayed out from a truck, and it covers the entirety of the road, so it fills in all the little cracks all in the road. And it seals up where we have the gutter line where the asphalt meets the concrete. Goes over that, seals those areas up. And anytime you keep water from getting underneath the road, it just extends the life. Asphalt, if you keep it coated that way, technically it almost can last indefinitely. That's generally what TxDOT, anybody that drives down Schoolhouse Road, that is what Schoolhouse Road is. It has been just sealed over numerous times. And then we finally went in and asphalt project to the city. But all the years before, that was nothing more than a chip seal and a slurry sealed road that had been built up year after year after year after year to where it was, at the time we went in and treated up and did the asphalt, it was almost 6 inches thick layer.
I want to ask, if you drive White or over in Key White and travel Lane and White Lane, there's portions just pulverized and falling apart, so that's going to be repaired.
Yeah, those are repaired
or replaced. I know in Ashmore Farms there are small areas here and there throughout Ashmore. Would they be repaired under
That's
this?
when we did the last one, what we would do is, since they're small enough, a lot of these we would probably do ourselves to save some money, so we stretch dollars for the slurry seal more. Is you go in, take those places out, and you do a full depth repair where you'll do 8 inches instead of a standard 2-inch thick, 4-inch thick asphalt. You go with 8 inches, you'll put 6 inches of binder mix down in the bottom, compacted in, and you'll come back in with 2 inches of surface mix on top of it. And when they do the slurry seal, they still right on top of that till all your joints up. Underneath there, so one uniform surface. And the slurry seal got just enough grit to give you traction. That's one of the things that happens. The road, when it breaks down, it gets to where it's slick. And ice storm, it gets really slick. But rain events, it gets slicker. Gives you that just a little bit more traction. And like I say, it's lasting. That's been probably one of the best things I think all the little simple things we've done over the years, all the years I've been here. That was probably one of the most cost-effective things we've ever done. That bought us a lot of years on
Very good.
The, right here, 85,000, 770. And then the Parks Department, we're asking for this, it can be used as a mower also. It's a front mower. It has a deck that you can put on the front, but it also can handle front load equipment. The main thing is a broom, because the tap trail, every time we have a rain event or anything, especially under the bridge, but the entire thing needs to be swept off every time we have a rain event. And rather than constantly renting one, we would like to get them a machine that they can keep, so that they can, as soon as it's over, they can jump on this thing and go, and it works as a additional mower if we need them to, get enough people, we can do it. Works as an additional mower part. It's a big machine, but that having to right now, they'll come steal the skid steer and try to brush it off. They need something they can jump on when because those guys are down there every week. They know what needs cleaning up, and instead of having to always schedule it, they can jump on it and get it done right then. Move on down the road to the next project instead of waiting on the other guys. Next one, we can scratch that one too, because that's the mowers y'all just approved also. So that one can go away.
The John Deere.
$40,000 Z-Track mowers. We don't need those now. Next one is, this is renting some space for the Christmas decoration. Right now, we have a little building there in the park. You can get the door open, but you really can't go inside unless you're willing to squirt around. So that building is packed as full as you can get it from floor to ceiling, front to back. Then we have an old shed at our Public Works building, and we got some of the stuff, we got it packed full of Christmas decorations. Then you go up to our South Pump Station water station, and we had to put some of it up there because there's just not enough room for all of it. We have so much of it now, and there's just no place to keep it all. So we'd like to rent, kind of like the library went, they got a place rented. We don't need air conditioned and heated like they do to maintain their stuff, but a place where we can put it all so that once a year when we need it, it's there and just go get it all out. And when we're done, we can put it away and don't have to look at it every day. Oh.
Is there going to be any storage space?
Not a lot. By the time you have the water lines and stuff that are inside, there's not a lot of room in there to store anything in. Some, but not a lot. Yeah. It'll give you about the room we have in that one little bitty shed, maybe. It'd be about that much room, but that's about all. So like a 12 by 12 garden shed, maybe. Oh, let's see. Now there's a couple of items we got coming up that I think the things we're asking for, but I believe Thad may be able to help you with the funding of them. Okay. What we have is anybody that goes down and sees how our little park there, especially Gamble Park, has taken off as far as people going and using the park constantly. One of the things we found out is, boy, they're bringing chairs all the time because there's not enough places to sit by the playground. There's one little bench swing down there, and then otherwise you got to go back way up here to this picnic table or way over there to a bench. It needs to have some benches around that playground. And we don't have enough trees. We figured we might as well put them in the shade, because that's also one of the biggest complaints we get when they are down there sitting is, well, there's a good bench over there, but man, it's right out. No shade, no anything around it. So that's been something we hear a lot from people that are using the park, that, boy, it'd be nice to have a bench here, nice to have it covered. So and they're not cheap, but something that we were looking at getting, and Thad says that that's something that they might could help with. Same thing with our trash. We wanted to add additional, if we're going to add benches, might as well add trash receptacles with them. All that stuff might as well too, because there's so many more people using that park.
What about the sidewalk extension with the covered benches?
That's to keep it, that's our one park that is totally right now ADA compliant. It's an accessible park. So we would want to extend concrete sidewalks to each one of these benches, make sure we keep that flow that we have now. That it's been one of the reasons, at least what we hear a lot, that's one of the reasons so many people like it, is that they can, if they don't even have an ADA child, but they've got a stroller, it's easy to get there. They're not having to bump around over the grass. But the ones who do have children that need those services, those people have been ecstatic.
And they kept that in mind when they designed some of the playground equipment too,
Yes,
right?
that was one of the main things of that surface of that playground. The fact that playground has a long, low sloping ramp throughout the interior of the playground, so that you can actually take a wheelchair to the highest point inside that playground. So those kids can be up there with the other kids. And that has been a big plus. Lots of people constantly are telling us, if we're down there walking around, oh, how nice this is. They're always thanking the city for doing this, because there are not very many. I mean, the next closest one is back in Saginaw. That's actually an accessible park like that. So it has been a very big improvement, and is much appreciated by the public from what we've seen. We get nothing but good. We don't get any complaints anymore out of that one. Everything's always good. Before it used to be, wow, when are y'all going to fix this? We don't hear that no more. So we've been wanting to add that, trash receptacles to help with that. And then we wanted, one of the things that we also are asking here, of course, along with the additional trash things, is additional funding to rotate employees in on the weekends to clean the trash. That's $5,000. And the next thing that EDC would also, it seems probably we could take to them, possibly get help with, is light or doing electric outlets, because that's one of the things the park board has talked about a lot. Is Gamble Park's nice, but it's small, and since almost all of our Christmas events, the big part, when the children come, the choirs come to sing, we take them all the way up there to the basketball. But then the trees and everything's are down here in the other end of the park. We want to move it all up, centralized, located there around the basketball court, so that we can have everything up there, but we do not have any power out there. We've got some lights underneath the canopy, but that's it. There's no electric plug. Gamble Park, it does have. We have plugins all around that park. That's what they would like to do up there, so that they could move the event up there. It would be, not only would it help Christmas, but National Night Out. That's where we always do that event. And instead of having to have a bunch of generators all around, we would be able to just work with the vendors.
That's what I was
plug
going to
in.
ask. With Wild West Fest too, it would help
Oh
with
yeah,
vendors.
all of our stuff, more and more stuff is right there all the time with the different events we do. So it makes a lot of sense to do that, to have power up there that people could use. Because right now, it's got to bring cords and bring generators. And the last one that they would have some interest in is additional lighting along the trail. We've had that's been probably one of the only complaints we get about the tap trail, is that if you want to go through there in the evening in the summertime or in the wintertime especially, it's just pitch black dark all the way. And so they asked, we've had a lot of questions and people asking about that. So
I want to clarify. So this is the community park trail, not the entire tap trail, but just the part that's in the community park.
that's where we would
Start and then
start there and start working our way up there. Over. This right here would probably do clear. It would get us actually probably clear of the bridge and probably up over in front of Cook, most likely. Yeah, because we've got all the way around the old inner. We're just picking up the new section out and through.
And that's something also EDC might consider, or
With the left.
EDC had helped, the Type B Corporation helped with the city match half trail. They also paid for the lights that are currently around the park, as well as the pavilion. So Type B shown strong these types of projects, and these are the types of help. Personnel and things like that are typically eligible for funding, but again, not that, it's, I would be going absolutely to the board if some type of investment.
And this is very much in line with the Type B project.
Yes, sir.
Good.
So David, before you go on.
Sure.
Remember the wind turbine park?
The wind turbine one did not last through 2 storms before the helix that drove the generator on top, it broke. I mean, completely broke off. So it didn't work very well. These solar lights that are currently in the park, for the most part, I don't know, 85% good. We've had a few problems with them, but nothing like that. And they generally work fairly well.
There was a guy that showed up one day, and he said, "How about I put one of these in your park for free?" Cover all the expenses. That's actually a pretty clever idea. And this helix wind generator, wind electrical generator, or helix, light.
Yeah, it just wasn't stout enough for our kind of weather, I guess. Kind of stay with park stuff. We'll kind of skip the next one, go down. We've got basketball goals. This is something that's also been requested a time or two during the events, National Night Out, some of the other events there. The basketball goals are kind of in the way, so they've asked if it was possible, and we've come up with a way that could be done. You build a socket. We take the existing goals out, clean them out, build a socket down in the ground that we could put them back into, pin them in place, close the doors around them. So when we have an event, they're going to be in place. Just our guys, public works guys, would go out there, open them up, pull the pins, take the things out, store them over in the park board building till the event's over. Then we'd bring them back over and put them back in and go on. But that would take them out of the way of. Often now they kind of are in the way of some of the vendor stuff, especially National Night Out. That's the whole area that they kind of pull everybody away because they're in the way.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. So you'd have to use a lift, a forklift. You can't manhandle.
Yeah, no,
those
we would
goats.
use the Bobcat because we have forks on it. We would use it with the fork, and a couple of guys lift it up.
and I was thinking maybe like more of a volleyball pole that you could, but
No,
it would
no,
be
no.
heavier than a volleyball pole.
Oh yeah, as big as that because it's
Well, the
entire
goal is 10 foot
the
tall,
goal,
and that's
the
probably,
poles, everything all in one big unit. So we
It's-
come over with the
6
lift,
inch
lift
schedule
that thing
40
up.
pipe.
oh yeah, yeah, it's heavy. So we just lift it up out of there,
Yeah.
forks off the set, and then bring it down to the field, roll it across the street. That's the. And then we've got it's been on there and it just keeps coming back is the upper water crossing bridge to make it match up with the existing bridge that we've already upgraded. Because every time it rains, that one's we get a lot of washout, but then it's a good while afterwards before you can use the trail ever again because water is flowing over it because it's a low water crossing. So they've been asking for that for years and years and years.
And what would that entail to correct that?
They would cut that out and bring in box culvert or replace it like we did the other crossing where I think those are 40 feet box culvert all the way across, repave back over the top, and it has the textile approved guardrails and all those nice little things on it. Turn it more into a bridge instead of a low water crossing. And then the other is more of a aesthetic, I guess more than anything, is bricking in around the columns on the basketball court. Because the base, they'll say, well, they're just piers poured in the ground. They're kind of.
To what height?
But they were talking, we're talking 4 to 6 feet off the ground. High base. If that was being done, we'd probably want to add electricity and those at the same time, because that would be kind of neat.
When I looked at that, I thought of when I'm there playing pickleball myself or seeing people play basketball, and I wonder if it would be dangerous if there's. I mean, it would look nice. It would look pretty.
That
Like
was
you said,
the whole thing. It was
aesthetics.
more of an aesthetic improvement to
I just wonder about
what's there.
safety if you're
So this would be
chasing a
brick?
ball.
Brick or
CMU
stone,
or
whatever
something?
y'all decided, somebody decided to pick. But brick or stone.
But I thought of the same thing. Well, if I got these bricks sticking out here in the way, then it might look nice, but functionally it's just something else I'm gonna run into and hit my legs on and things of that nature. I'd be more inclined to get some heavy duty padded wrapping around it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, aesthetically that wouldn't be as pleasing, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to the other thing that's a big thing that we get lots of complaints about. Fire station field, driveway and the parking area back there, and the one at Mansfield also. They're just gravel, very dusty. Get a lot of complaints about the dust, the air quality, especially in Brentwood. They complain about it blowing across their yard on weekends when baseball's going on, especially.
Loading up their air conditioners
Yeah,
and
we
things of that
get
nature.
lots of good complaints down there about the dust, because it is very dusty, very, very dusty, very fine. And so we are, rather than, since we all know we don't really know exactly what all's going to happen back there, don't want to go put a lot of money into anything back there, is to do a chip seal instead of regular asphalt or concrete. Do a chip seal, which will seal all that up, and it's only a thin layer, so maybe an inch all done packed together. But it will probably, with proper traffic, we don't have a lot of heavy traffic. It should last at least a good 5 to 10 years easy, and gives us time, to see what we ever going to do with it. But it'd be cheap. It would cut down, and like at Mansfield, it would give us the one thing that we missed as far as being ADA compliant is with the gravel parking lot. We have our handicap ramp and everything and sidewalks everywhere, but can't get to them without crossing out of that gravel parking. We could have this chip seal done all the way up to that, and that would create a smooth enough surface that qualifies to be ADA compliant. We could actually paint in marks for parking spaces and a handicap parking spot right there by it, which would make us ADA compliant on at least that baseball field. Because that is one of the things down at the other fire station field. That's one of the things we do get calls about occasionally, is that down there, again, you have the same thing. If you are wheelchair bound, there is no pavement to go behind this and actually watch baseball. It's all gravel. There's really no way to make any action at all to even get close. And we thought that would be a cheap enough alternative. And again, this is something from an ILA standpoint that the county might be willing to work with us on, which would make it probably even cheaper. They do this all the time, and I'm sure our commissioner would really enjoy a project that's helping out ADA compliances, kids, and baseball, and that would probably be kind of right up his alley. I think that wouldn't be a hard sell to convince them to do something like that. And that's
Yeah, for the whole thing. But
that's,
you're just saying we could get cheaper.
we probably could get a much cheaper price if we did it through the county. This is doing it at about, the average cost runs around $3 square foot. I know in the past, the county's told me before, their cost material-wise doesn't even get to $1. It's like 75 or 85 cents material-wise. So that's what we got. Probably more than you want, but that's what we got.
All right, council, then what I thought of, we might take a 5-6 minute break and come back and wrap, any questions you got for Mr. Rogers. All right. All right, let's have a break here. It is 7:06, so I'll meet you back here at 7:15. That gives you about 8-9 minutes. We will resume the budget workshop number 2. It is 7:17 p.m. And does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rogers?
I do have one, and it's basically same question that was sort of asked yesterday when we were talking about the general fund and we were talking about the waste and going to the potential going to getting the third card or something like that for, that. And I saw here on your account for the trash expense, it says there was a 3% increase in April of 2018. Is that the last time that when was the last time we actually did any type of contract with trash?
While you're looking for that, I do want to tell you that I was remembering that on the bulk trash day, you can set out brush, but it has to be cut and tied. They will take that.
Yes.
I didn't think about that till last night. 4 feet, yeah. So
I want to make a comment. That used to be, I'm going to remember back 25 years ago, 20 years ago, the big event in Haslet was opening day of fall season. That was our big event. Our big event in Haslet 25 years ago was opening day of fall season. That was our big social event. And then maybe probably starting, really in 2000, if you remember, this trash collection was right after the election. And the custom was all the newly elected, or all the council members took turns to help people unload all their brush and stuff like that because we served the citizens. It was we did that for years. And I don't know when that stopped. Well, it went to a half day from a full day. But anyway, I thought it was just a novelty thing. It was kind of a social event. So if I'm just tying it up and letting Allied pick it up, Lord have mercy. Who am I going to get to meet?
So that goes to the next question then. If it's a 3% per year escalator, and I saw this on the trash expense, it's showing the exact same amount as the prior year. So should there not be a 3%? I'm on page 180. That's where it was. I was sort of looking at it, and I saw the last increase was 2018, 3%. But what I'm hearing is an escalator, then that should have been 3% per year. Yet we're doing the same amount.
Is it a one-time 3% for 5 years? You know what I'm saying? Is that, Mr. Cornell, is it a one-time 3% for 5 years?
So if we took a 3% escalator on the 151,800, that new number would be 156,354. 156,354. Where in the summary sheet would that get added in? You know, which line item would that, under expenditures, it'd be? Okay, so that would get the 156,354.
It looks like it went up quite a bit from the 2018, you know, from 104 to 117, then from 117 to 150,000.
3%. I think I did 3% of 117, and what's the difference?
That's quite a bit. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think maybe Travis didn't say because it was 3% for the contract. There was also wouldn't it? But obviously.
So I have a question. So can you talk about the vac truck a little bit more? I'm having trouble visualizing what that might be, and is that who puts those things together? Why is it so expensive? And do you need the truck part with it? Is it truck powered? You know, and how often would you need this thing? $500,000, you need a good place to park. How often would you think you'd need it, and how long do you think it would last?
Oh, if we had one, I mean, it's like now when they go out to, we have a vac trailer. That's a part. This is here combines two machines together. We have two machines doing the jobs now. The vac trailer we use pretty much, I don't know, 85% of every new meter they set, and they use it on. You use it for digging. We use it for potholing, locating lines around the system. We've got the LaPrel property project over here, needing 3 line locates over there for our gas line. That's the machine that goes and does that sort of stuff. And then it also, on the front, has a sewer jet, and this is all powered by the engine on the truck that you use for cleaning and unstopping sewer main at the same time. And if we had this thing, it would be being used most all the time. Every week there'd be something it would be doing constantly. Because right now, with the smaller machine, we can only clean small lines. So there's very little they can do. We've gone to so much more bigger stuff. And then Of course, when you have a stop up, that's just an emergency type thing. But the going out and doing potholes and doing the meter sets and all, that's pretty much all the time. They're out. I'll say here lately, that's been a lot of meters set every week. And that's what they use. It takes, instead of going out there and hand digging for 45 minutes to an hour and a half setting a meter, they go out there and with that machine, they can suck out, clean out that hole and get a new meter set in 30 minutes, and they move on to the next. Try to get more done in a day's time.
How long
They
would the
are-
equipment, the life of that truck? What would you
Oh,
expect?
they always talk about their 10+ year truck. You know, as long as you take care of. And something that you can think about when we're doing all this, they do have lease purchases for them. There's deals out there. You don't have to buy them all the time. There's a couple of outfits that are actually doing deals. They would prefer you take it on a lease thing and then turn it back into them to sell, because on a government contract, the truck sells for less than it does on a private sale. But private individuals that use them, which there are a lot that use them, especially in the oil and gas industry, they tend to want to buy one that's been used because they don't want to pay the nearly $750,000 to $800,000 range that they pay for them. So they like to buy the used ones. So they get cities. A lot of cities will buy one. They hold them for 3 years or so on a lease, turn around at the end of the lease. They decide, make a decision. Okay, we really just want to keep this one. They go ahead and pay off the last. Otherwise, the company pays them for the remainder of the lease, takes the truck, turns around, sells it. They send you another new truck. So there's a number of ways to go at it. It doesn't have to just be a flat out purchase. It can be a capital item where you pay on it for the next 10 years or so, or you could look into a lease for the same kind of time period or less.
Is this the Richie brother?
Not normally. You don't see them very much. Most of these things tend to be, I mean, it's like Fort Worth. They generally run theirs until they're pretty much ready for pasture at that point. Fort Worth has, oh gosh, I think they're close to a dozen of them now. But yeah, there's something to everybody that pretty much the used market is not very good for them. And what there is of it seems like the oil and gas industry jumps on them and pays way too much for them.
So basically, what you have in here though is $500,000 to just go out and buy one. So
That's if you went
you're
just
not
flat
looking
bought.
at the amortization over 5 or 10 years or a lease. So this was just to
No,
go
this
out and
was
buy.
just a flat, you just did it and then you're done kind of thing.
Okay, well, okay, on page 175, there is something, it says if request for vac truck not approved, and that's the 25,000. Is that more of the lease or the rental?
That's just for having them come out and do blockages, getting them unstopped in a year's time.
Okay, so that's not 25,000 per time.
No,
It would be for the year.
that's for about 4 times to have somebody come out because we got to stop up the remainder.
Okay, and my other, so okay, and that's what we've been doing. That's what we're
That's
currently
kind of
doing.
where we are now. Is if we have one, if it's in a small line, we take care of it with what we got. If it's anything big, we try with our machine as best we can, but we have to have that money there just in case, because one of these big lines stop up. Again, our machine's made small, not really made for that kind of work.
Okay, that helps me because I'm trying just to think of myself, 500,000 versus 25,000 a year. How long would that? And then my other question: if we had our own back truck, what do we do with the sewer, or where do we put?
No, once you vac it out, it goes in a tank on the truck. You then put it back in, but you put it back in at a pace, not, you don't flood it. You take that waste and put it back in to the system. Same thing we do now when we suck out a sewer line, we take it. But the biggest thing these things do is preventative maintenance. That's what we don't get to do now because we don't have a machine capable of it, is preventative maintenance. We should be cleaning a section of sewer pipe there. We should make it from one end of our system all the way through to the other end of the system once a year. Right now, we get basically this part of town, parts of Haslet Park, and some inside the neighborhoods, but the main trunk lines, we can't do them because it's too big. We can only do little small. And ours, because it's a small machine, the filling it up with water is 2/3 of the day's work is refilling it back up. It's got only a 300-gallon tank. These things hold a lot of water. They're made to work hours at a time.
But I want to make I see what you're heading. We had $25,000 a year and $500,000. Well, that $25,000 a year is just.
Yeah, that's emergency only.
What he's talking about is totally different, and you could not afford to hire somebody to do it.
No, we
You'd
couldn't
be
hire
well
a
over
service.
$500,000.
It would cost us in a year to do our entire system would cost us more than a truck. It's an expensive process to have done. Like I say, we've seen the Epry property next door to our shop. They had them come out to do some work over there, and they were spending $16,000 a day to have these guys over there work.
Let me ask a question. So this would provide, of course, block, but you'd be able to regulate. So your speak is clearing out blood.
You keep the grease buildup down.
Does that help? I mean, like we were talking, maybe it's the fact put chip seal or seal on roadways and extending the life of it. Does that help?
Yeah,
extend the life of our sewer system?
Keeping the sewer mains cleaned out. One, you're pulling out excess gas, but if you keep that grease buildup out of those lines, it improves and extends the life of your pipeline system overall. It especially helps your manholes. Manholes especially are prone to gas leaching into them, causing problems and wearing them out. And keeping the lines clean keeps the gas in the lines down overall, because you don't have that.
That does help. That was what I was thinking. And I'm not against this. I mean, we have it for our 5-year capital improvement plan.
I know it's a large expense. I understand that.
I'm just trying to think to myself. So anything, I don't know if this is Mayor or Marcy, so anything that we would get on a certificate of obligation, like debt, would be 20 years? I was thinking to myself, if the truck lasts 10 and a half, I'm just trying to decide, what items on here is going to get the longevity of 20 years if we're going to be paying for it for 20 years. I want to make sure I'm correct in that.
The scenario that's in the back of your budget was just kind of looking at all of it going 20 years. Granted, some of the equipment like this wouldn't last 20 years, but there's a lot of things on average, I think, that they were using the 20 years maturity. This was just one scenario that they ran just so that we could use it for budget purposes. And like I said the other night, you could break this up into more than one CO. You could have one that was more general fund oriented, one that was water. You could, have one that's, you could have different terms. So you can do a lot of things. This was just kind of something that we could use generically to talk about during budget, not really knowing what items would be finally included. It was hard to pick and choose what to have.
Have you looked at the lease? If you're saying they thought on the municipal, they're $800,000.
Yeah.
If you're getting it for $5, that's a
we have looked at. Like I said, there's one of the people that make these, because these are all custom built trucks. They're not something you just go pick up down at Ford or Chevy. They're just not that way. There's one of the manufacturers in Arlington that's their recommendation generally is lease it. You should never want to own one of these things. Just lease it.
And that's where I'm going with that. If you turn around and get
their program
if you get the resale
is a whole lot
in 3
about,
years.
Part of their deal is they want to do all the maintenance. And I mean, that's everything down to the tires on the ground. They want to do all the maintenance on it. Make sure it comes to them for all the maintenance. They take care of everything. If anything goes wrong, that way they know with the end of the lease, they get it back. They know what they got. They know what they're going to be able to sell it for. And they're willing to, they guarantee you a price up front of what they say that truck's going to be worth at the end of your lease. So they guarantee you they're going to pay you that much. And then you can either take the money, put it on another lease, or you can turn around and say, nope, guess what, we're going to go borrow the money and pay that ourselves and keep this. They don't really care. The others have different ones. That's just the one that we had out and heard the most about, how they lease them. But all of them offer lease purchases, or you can go to your own bank and set up, your own lease purchase through the bank.
It just seems to me like it might be beneficial for that from a city standpoint, like you were talking about.
It's the same way when we bought our backhoe. That's how we bought it. We did it on a lease purchase. We rented, bought it, leased it. Once we got to the end, we paid them $1 and kept it. But we had the option at that point to turn around, turn it back in, and get another one. But the liars was low enough, so we decided it was worth paying the $1 and just hang on to it.
Does technology change on these?
Not a whole lot. You might see something change every 15, 20 years, but in general, not a whole lot. They're a big vacuum suction pump and a big high pressure water pump. That's what they basically are. Just mounted up on a truck. Similar, a little bit. It's a lot bigger. They generally, because of what they do, the pumps and all on them are a little more higher end type pumps because they do a lot more work, and they usually do a lot more stuff that's using stainless steel for a lot of the lines and stuff. The septic trucks tend to stick with heavy metal and use them, and then because they run those things into the ground, really, they work those things really hard. So they're planning on, usually those things, they have a life of about 5 or 6 years, and it's time for another one. They move on. And nobody wants them after they're done with them anyway, so they, whatever value is always scrap value when they get rid of those. So they run through them pretty quick.
I kind of like that deal.
Do you have any idea of what annual, what the upfront cost would be?
Seemed like it was somewhere around 60 some odd, but we'll be happy to go.
Maybe find out tomorrow.
Yeah, we can call her and get some numbers if we need to. Yeah, not a problem.
I know that we're talking about the staffing, adding the additional staffing, and so this item, whether we lease it, buy it, whatever we do, it's because it's a preventative measure. Have you implemented this into staffing, the staffing request as far as that
is a piece of what we would like, because at a bare minimum, what we would prefer doing, at least for our system, would be to, with our own personnel, get through the system, about half of the system every single year. So what they would do is in our slower months in the winter, 2 of these guys, that's all they do all day long, is head out there with that truck and clean sewer lines. They'll start on the top, work their way down. The next year, they'll start where they stop, finish the rest of it. They get some time in between, sure, we'll send them out again, but as a minimum, we'd want them to do it half a year, every year. Clean half the system every winter. It's a good thing to do. It's actually surprisingly one of the things. You'd be surprised how warm it is standing over the top of a manhole in the middle of the wintertime when it's 20 degrees outside and the temperature in that manhole is around 65. It's not all that bad. Not smell so good, but temperature-wise, it's fairly comfortable.
You want to do this or this? Think about it.
Well, most of the guys that these kind of trucks, they like these things anyway. I think they'd probably be fighting each other to see who was going to be the one going out and using it.
I guess following on with Councilmember Clark's question, do you have an actual plan, or is it going to take the place of something else that you're already going to do?
Yeah, it would be taking place of 2 machines we have now. We wouldn't need the trailer anymore, which is small and it's hard to pull. It's very heavy.
But the maintenance plan itself, is it going to take the place of work that you would already be planning? Is it going to be over and above work? You're going to create additional a quarter head, third of a head?
Oh yeah, no, this would be above and beyond what we can do today. That's why we were also needing the extra help to do this kind of stuff.
And so that's already in here.
Mm-hmm. That was part of what was kind of guessed what we would like these new guys to be doing. Anything else? I know you're thinking of something. I can see it. And you're right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Not that quick, but on the South Pump Station,
Mm-hmm.
I know that includes a couple items. So you had mentioned that you would take it offline. And so can you go into detail as far as how that would work? How that might impact, if it does go offline, how that impacts?
That's part of why we would like to do this. We want to get it to be where we have the two stations are pretty much equal is what we would like to have. They both have meters flowing in from Fort Worth. That's not a problem. They can get the same amount of water in. The other station's got a 1 million gallon tank on the ground, and it's got 3 1,500 gallon pumps. So we would like this station to be the same. So it can pump the same amount of water. If one station goes down, the other station can take over and do the same amount of work. And by doing it in the winter months when we have our low deal, shouldn't be a problem. The Harmon Road station, like it did this last time, it ran the entire system. We'd have had enough water from Fort Worth, or could have got water out of our other tanks. We'd have been able to keep going a lot longer, but the station can do it. It's just we want to have that redundancy, the backup, pretty much like anything, like fire department. You got to have enough trucks. If you don't have enough, one goes down, you're kind of messed up. We're the same way with the water stations. If something happened drastic to one of them, we would at least have one. But taking it offline, in the winter months, our water use drops so drastically every year in the winter. We'll go from 17 to 20 million gallons of water in a summer month down to 4 or 5 million gallons of water in a winter months. Mm-hmm.
That, again,
That's again, like I say, part of it, having more water storage at the site and having pump capacity to be able to move it if we need to would have made some things a little bit easier for us. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but we could have lasted a little longer. We did. Fort Worth had ceased delivering water to us. 2 more days, we lasted another almost 2.5 days beyond when we were no longer getting anything from Fort Worth. And we had enough water in the tanks to probably last another 1.5 days, maybe 2. And if we'd have been able to squeeze that, we might have just barely made it, not having to go to boil water. He'd say we wouldn't, but we would have got a lot closer.
I'm going to make a comment because this is one of my areas of practice. And we're running a municipal water system, and that meets a high level of because it's for human consumption. And when you don't have the redundancy in the system that you need such a pump tank to operate your system, you're putting a lot of things in jeopardy. You got to go down. That limits your choices on taking parts of the system down, whether it's pumps or tanks or whatever, to do those maintenance items you need to do. Well, you just keep running, and you're waiting for a failure. So it prevents scheduled maintenance.
That's one of the things that will help this station too, but it's the same thing. Having this additional elevated tank over here, one of the things we've needed to do for a number of years now is to take our Harmon Road elevated tank down for a paint job, but on the inside of the tank. The outside could use it too, but the inside is more important to me. The outside's aesthetics. That's not as big a deal. But the inside has needed some paint work done, but without an additional elevated tank, we would have to bring in some kind of outside special pumping and set up some kind of temporary setup that would be expensive just to be able to take that thing offline. Once this tank's finished and built, we'll be able to use that for storage temporarily while they take that one down and paint it.
If we have the proper distribution pumps in place.
We got to have the pumps to be able to shove the water around from place to place.
So
Actually,
no, go ahead.
No.
that was going to be my next. I was surprised see any. Account bank. So, I don't know when that thing. So you're thinking, because every year
That's,
we
yeah,
talk
we're
about
probably looking at,
Harmon Road maintenance, we need to do this.
yeah, it's probably,
Haven't done it yet.
knock on wood, with any luck, it'll be a next year's project, because by then the tank will be completed, everything should be up, and if we can possibly do this one, we should be set and ready to go in there and say, okay, now let's take that one offline for a couple of months, get it all back up and get it back up in shape before summertime came again.
Never been touched.
No, this tank, we definitely got our money's worth out of this paint job on the tank. And the rust spots, the rust is in it is nothing's bad, but it's just that point you need to come in there, blast it off, get it and refresh it back up and get it painted up again. And technically can't do it at the moment.
I will ask one other question based upon a lot of these capital expenditures that we've been looking at. You know, again, you've probably spent a lot of time, what we used to do in the military, repairing.
Mm-hmm.
You spend
Yes.
most of your time's out there repairing, you're in the shop doing it. If you're getting all this new stuff, you're not having to do that. Have you looked at the trade-off of the efficiencies that you might be
Yeah,
getting?
right now I can tell you currently, I mean, yes, we just got our Superior Water System approval from TCQ, but we don't do near as much process control as we probably should. We're not probably doing half what I wish we could.
So you're going to be trading off that work that you'd be
Yes,
working in the
that
shop
we're
to get some better,
spending
to get
time
better.
fixing everything. They're going to be out cleaning, flushing lines, which will improve water quality. But we also will be doing more testing. Right now, to get the testing that we should be getting done, about the only way we get to it is if I go out and do half of that, because we just don't have enough manpower to do it. So that pulls me away from the desk to get anything else done. So I spend, and to do the testing we have, it's about a 2.5 day a week, nothing but tests, running tests, pulling the samples and running those tests to meet all the requirements that we'd like to meet. That would get us all of our nitrate, nitrites that we would really like to keep up on.
So on the street project for White Lane, we had talked about using the quarter-cent street tax. But now we've completed the job we've done this year. So it would be, so you have it on, I guess you've moved it out of that fund because it's going to take years to replenish. And this was the next project. Has park. You white next, white. So are we thinking this is going to take too long? I did drive down it last night on the way here. It's really got worse lately. Yeah. Probably all the rain we had this spring made it even worse. Yeah,
that road definitely has some issues with pumping water. And so, yeah, when we have a rainy year like we've had this year, it's tough on that road.
But you mentioned those, Marcy, you want to respond, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Fund 20, yes, we did, with our budget amendment last Tuesday, deplete the fund in the current year. With no project scheduled for next year, we're estimating that the balance at the end of next year would be about $290,000. Once again, that's with a pretty conservative estimate on the sales tax. And depending on if the sales tax continues kind of at the rate it's been, we could possibly get close to, 500,000, but I would hate to start the project without knowing that we had that money on hand if it was going to come from this fund.
You had mentioned, though, that both white lanes could possibly be ILAs. or I think you
Right.
mentioned that.
I
So-
mean, when y'all do, you know how you do when you do the ILA, it doesn't hurt to ask for all kinds of stuff and then see which one of them usually comes to the top that's, something that seems like the county or just fit where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing. And so it's always worth asking.
If we went for that, would we say that they're two separate projects? The hill curve to Bain Road and then the Bain
Probably
Road?
to give them that flexibility of where.
If they like one more than the other?
And when they give you back pricing, you may look at, okay, we can't afford that one now, this one maybe later, or vice versa.
Because when you said 290, because I know Ashmore Farms does need to be repaired and slurry sealed, but that, we waited 1 year on that, that would cover the 250, just a thought. The street maintenance tax, hopefully, it's projected, on the Ashmore Farms pavement repair in 1 year, so that it's paid for, not out of debt. That's just an option.
Yeah, we should have been, schedule-wise, we should have tried to have done this about 5 years ago to stay ahead of it. And it's,
I'll tell you where I'm going with this, because this is how my mind kind of works. So I'll look at the 3.759, 480, 3,759,480 in possible, debt. And I think to myself, how much should we, take on 15 years, 20 years, and then what items could we possibly pull out for ILAs or EDC, and then what items could we possibly move to general fund. So I'm just thinking in my mind how to get that number a lot lower, because let's say it's a full 3 million, and then we have to pay, there'll be a yearly cost for that, correct? That's not even in our budgeted, right? So I'm just trying to think, you mentioned EDC on a few things, the ILA on a few things, so I'm just trying to get that number down to a little bit more, for me, not over obligating. That's a lot of debt, so that's just my opinion.
Let me say like the tax called employee. Have it at not 30.
Right. The exhibit that's on page 304 is showing in that first line, the 9/30/2021 line. Basically, it's showing in the middle is the new debt that would be proposed. You wouldn't have any debt service payments until 9/30/2022, and so it wouldn't affect your tax rate this coming year. It would affect it the next year. And so what they're showing over in the far right column, currently our tax portion, the debt portion of our tax rate is 0.03327. So it's a little less than 3.5 pennies. And so it's showing that based on what they're assuming is that our net valuation would go up, which would mean our rates would come down. And so the INS rate, the tax rate for the general fund portion of this debt would go down in the next year to 0.0319. But then you can see in the next year when we have the actual payment, it would come up to 420. So between the 0.0319 and then 0.0420 is the penny that the mayor's referring to.
I agree with you that these items are important, need to be done. I just don't know if it's hard for me to swallow $3.7 million in debt. And so I just don't know if some of the items, like for the ILAs, if we took off the White Lane, that's $1 million right there to see if we can possibly get an ILA, an interlocal agreement. If we do decide to do the lease purchase, that's another $500,000 off the table, which that's bringing down a lot. Possible ILA for the fire station field, possible EDC for the community park electric and community trail. Now that's 2, 3, 4, another $500,000. Then it's looking at like less than $2 million. I'm very comfortable with that. So I don't know. We can move on anytime you want to.
If you live on White Lane, you might have a different opinion. How
True.
about that, Warren?
And I've lived in Haslet Park for a long time with really bad roads, and we're patient and we're happy it's done. It scares me a little bit to be this aggressive, but I do understand what you're saying about we have it, let's do it, and let's get everything up to, like we can do it and get everything kind of where it needs to be moving forward, but it's just a lot of, just my, because we already have, because I'm one more thing.
How much debt do we have now? Total.
The far left column says existing payments. So it has the total of what's outstanding, and then it's showing what water and sewer is repaying, what the EDCs are repaying, and then the tax supported portion. That's our existing debt right now.
Go.
Page 304. So and then the next to the last column would be what our new outstanding would be should we issue all of this debt. And I did just a quick calculation a minute ago. The EDC items, with the exception of the basketball court columns that maybe didn't sound like we were going to do, that's 382,000 worth of projects, and 344,000 of that was marked to come from the COs. So if EDC paid for those, that would reduce the bonds by 344,000.
I guess like something on a new generator, instead of putting that out for a CO. I mean, I think they need one. Somebody needs one. There's 2 on here. I'm good for 1, personally. But maybe that could come out of general fund instead of paying on that for 15, 20 years. I don't know how long generators last, honestly. Forever? No.
No. Yeah, they last,
20,
you'll get a good 20, 25 years out of one, sure, most of the time. Unless we have a lot of winters like we had this.
And I think for me personally, I would be more open to the large amount if our general fund wasn't gonna already be negative, or not negative, that's not the right term, but
We got millions in the
going
reserve.
to be a taxing need. We do have millions in the reserve, you're right.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, we could look at this and we moved all those items that we looked at that were, I'll say, long life, whether it be truck, piece of equipment, whatever that could have a long life service in general, under a certificate of obligation, all for the purpose of, because Gary did go, well, let's spend some of this reserve. Pile of cash. But here, specific, we have immediate needs, let's spend some.
Right, I guess that.
Right, so, but, talking with Marcy, yes, you got that, but you don't know what's gonna happen. There's no guarantees. So if you got cash, that's fine. You might want to keep and put all these long life items and acquire those with a CO, certificate of obligation. You still got the cash. You could go pay that off if you want, but you're not rendering all that cash right now. So it gives you some confidence. And at the rate of what the COs are, it's not expensive for that. But I tell you, I'd be all for it. We'll identify some equipment and we buy it out of reserve.
I really only have 1, 2. When I had a question, because I noticed you gave us the updated, why did the Public Works Facilities Yard Needs Assessment move from the CO to reserve?
Which one is that?
It's the yellow,
Oh, it's an architect. We're hiring an architect.
so it wouldn't be something.
We don't
to
want
pay
to
off.
borrow, take a CO to pay $40,000 for an architect.
Yeah, I really only had 3 things that I thought could be moved over, and it was the generator, the valve, and the Bobcat. That just was.
Move it out of
I'm
reserve.
just one person talking, so yeah.
But move it to the reserve? I mean,
Yes.
pay cash for it?
Out of the general fund, right?
There is one thing with generators, we don't know all that much. I don't know. You may know a little more, but I do know I hadn't had a chance to look at all of them, but I've gotten them from the state, FEMA, and 2 other outfits. There's a bunch of grant money being pumped out there for generators, all about what their use is for. I think the one at the elevated, the tank system probably would qualify because that is a critical facility. I don't know about the library, but maybe. Keeping the humidity level in a place like that is kind of critical for what it is.
Well, yeah.
But
let me like say, here's a good. My objective is however we do this, where we spend part of it out of reserve, or part of it's COs, or part of it, EDC pays for, or part of it comes from a grant, is we put it on here And if we had to pay full price, could we bear it? And I'm like, yeah, we could bear it. And it's nothing I would be embarrassed to ask our citizens for. They understand it. But if we can go out, if we can get the approval to let's go with this, but it's the equipment that people need to take care of our town and in those essential services, water, roads, water, sewer, roads, and that includes some maintenance of the grounds and the system. If we can get the EDC and see that as far as the time making that decision now, there's no guarantee we can get ILA on these things. But if we can approve it, if you see with a path forward, if you can approve it, but it gives us time. We still have time.
How does that work if I really honestly don't know. If we decide we want to do the fire station fields and we want to get a $278,000 debt of obligation or certificate of obligation, and then we get the ILA, how's that work?
We don't spend that money. Well, we spend a reduced amount. Okay,
so we are allowed to use the ILA, but use the money that's earmarked, just not as much.
Correct.
And then how do we pay back what you don't spend? I mean, I just really don't know.
Back.
Because we're borrowing 278, but we only need 200. What happens to the other 78?
Well, there's going to be time. With regard to the ILAs, that's an immediate application that we got to make within the month. And I don't know how long does it take for them to say yay or nay. But I'm going to say this: it'll probably take as I recall, about a good 2 months to get people rounded up and identify what's going to go on a CO and get all that, even started. So we have time, and that's plenty of time for projects that EDC would consider to get word back on that. That would be time for Mr. Rogers to be talking with the county. Okay, what will you do on this ILA? Then by the time we are actually have all the projects we would go with a CO, then we know what amount, what part of it. But also, again, you could go, we got an ILA that paid, $200,000 here and, in kind, and we only need to spend 60. Well, let's just take that out of reserve. You still make those decisions. And you're not obligating yourself to go get a CO because that was the model we put here in our workbook. Still make those decisions.
Could I mention one thing? I just wanted to also mention that for budget purposes, if you were going to fund something from reserve and do a CO, we would obviously move the money from the reserve to the appropriate capital fund, whether it was general fund or water. But on the CO portion, you would need to budget the very first year of debt service because of the timing. If we issued bonds today, we can't have them on this next year's tax rolls that will be certified on the 16th. So our first time opportunity to have it in our tax rate would be next year. And so you need to budget your first year of debt service payments, and then the next year you would catch them up through the rate. So that is something to think about. But once again, remember the first half of your worksheet on the general fund is the M&O, which is going to be the tax rate, the M&O tax rate. You're not building anything into the debt rate in this budget yet. It would be on next year. So with the time lag of issuing the COs, determining the ILAs, that type of thing, you have time to think about the impact on your debt rate, because it wouldn't be when we get the valuations on the third or whatever.
Input on the debt rate, that's just higher tax. The input
Yes.
that would add to our tax, like you said, or
Yes.
more or less or whatever.
The
Okay.
penny, and that's why they've, on that worksheet that the financial advisors did, that's why they're showing really this year our debt rate will go down because we haven't issued any new debt, and so the maturities are going to take it down, then the valuation will take it down, and so then you're just really basically raising it back up. So the reserve portion, even if you didn't budget those things, then your reserve's still there because you're not looking at the top part. You're not taking it out of the top part affecting your tax rate. So it's kind of two decisions to make. If you're going to fund all the personnel items and all the things that have been in M&O, I also identified a few things on the capital list, the overtime and some other things that should probably be moved into the M&O budget for water on that capital list. But so you need to think about in the two halves. One is what's going to be supported by your tax rate, and then what would you take out of reserves. What you take out of reserves would need to include that first year of debt service, regardless of how much a CO might be. But you would still have time to know what that is before you would put it into your tax rate next year.
I'd like to make
That
let me
makes
make
sense.
a comment to that. The big driver, biggest increase in tax is hiring duties, because we underwrite their salaries paid using our ad valorem tax. That's what's the big driver, and that would account. If it were from like right now, it's 25 cents on the 100, and if I think our model right now is projecting maybe 30 cents on the 100, well, 4 cents of that is to support all these new salaries. But I'm telling you, this is an absolute need. Nonetheless, is the and then the 1 cent, whether and that would go up or down depending on whether you want to go out of reserve or a fund, and what level of participation out of EDC as well as the, and they might participate in a great deal. It's like things are improving for them as well. I want to make a suggestion is that I want to take another 5-minute break, 10-minute break. Well, let's make it more realistic, 10-minute break, because it's always worked out that way. And maybe tonight we can maybe focus on Mr. Rogers and all those funds that he's affecting, and try to come to some what you'd like to see, or what other changes that you might like to see in the model that we could work on tomorrow and have for tomorrow night. And then tomorrow night we would be focusing on those other funds, particularly the general fund areas. Right now this is pretty much all about water and sewer and part board item 3. But that's the bulk of our request. Water, sewer, 3.
Yes, sir. The other thing is at your meeting next Monday night, we will be asking you to set a date for the budget hearing. And in the notice for the budget hearing, we need to let the public know what tax rate we're proposing. We propose a not to exceed rate. And because once you make that proposal, you can't go over what you propose, but you can certainly go under it. I calculated today after we moved the reserve down and or the contingency down, and in order to cover the deficit that you see on the worksheets you were handed this evening, we would need to have a tax rate of about 30%. We would need to raise $2,546,292 from our property tax, and that falls in between 29.96 and 30.06 for your tax rate for just the
Employee portion.
just for the M&O portion. And then you'd still have your debt rate on top of that. So your total tax rate would be, well, let me see. Yeah, no, that would include the debt.
Now, let me ask you, you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that, about providing for your first year service of the debt. Now, that's in our model already, servicing the first year, right?
No,
I thought we did.
because that would come out down in the reserve portion. So
Okay.
it's not up in the O&M because
All right.
it would be a one-time funding of that debt service, and then you'd build it into the rate the next year. The way the debt piece is done, you can only use what you have outstanding. You can't anticipate that you're issuing something new.
Okay.
So the one question, we do what, Mayor Pro Tem, this question, and we bring it back over on the third.
On the reserve,
If like they were talking, if instead of we doing the certificates of obligation, we bring it back over and take it from the reserve, we'd actually increase the tax more, we'd have to cover.
No.
That.
No. On that worksheet, page 11, tonight you're showing a deficit of 300 and some thousand. In order to the top portion, your operating expenditures, is what your M&O rate covers. And it doesn't cover it totally because we have other revenues, we have our sales tax and everything. But in order to be able to bank on something, you bank on your property tax because you know what your property values are and you assess the tax rate. So in order to increase the property tax to make that zero, that's your operating portion, and that's what would affect your tax rate. So down below the line, where we talk about our reserves, that's kind of like your savings account. So when you get down here to where we show the operating transfers out, that line for, and this is just for the general fund piece, but on the 19 capital projects fund, that's where you would place the amount that you're going to fund from the reserve. So it's going to reduce your fund balance total, but it's not going to affect your tax rate because it's a one-time thing.
30, saying a 29 to 30% tax increase?
No, a total.
We're at
And
3.
yeah, in order to get about the $2,553,000 we need in the tax supported part, not the debt part, it would be, I would say 30 to be on the safe side.
So that's 30 cents on the 100.
Yes.
30 cents on the 100, not 30%.
Yes, not 30%. I'm sorry. Yes.
So,
Now, excuse me, but that is using today's valuation.
That is using today's value.
And that's just a benchmark to give you a relative increase, okay? That's the only reason we did that.
so the new legislature rate not trigger.
Yes.
The M&O.
Mm-hmm.
So what
100,000.
Yeah.
That generates 100,000. 3.5%.
And we need 361, right? Or we need.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. That's 100,000. That's in that special little.
Special
That's
projects
what-
fund,
okay.
Fund 31. Yes.
But it didn't go away. We just rolled it
Right,
up for
but that's-
simplicity
that's
in
where
the
it is.
reserve. All of yours, all
So 3.5 no, it's not that right, percent. No.
Well,
That's
yes,
Three and a
3.5%.
half percent gets us $100,000, but we need $361,000.
Yeah.
So the 3.5 times 3 ish, trying to triple what we need. Yes, I know, I'm not saying that correctly.
Well, at what percent? So it's 3.5% increase above current rate. So you're at 25 on the 100. Okay, a 3.5% increase, 25 on 100. Let's see what that is.
Remember this worksheet? This is what I'm using to calculate. And once again, I just built on the one that y'all received last year because we're using the same valuation and the same thing. So your 3.5% increase this year that was over your no new revenue rate, O&M rate, that got you up to basically 24.99 cents.
So
And-
that was the 3.5% increase to take you up just shy of 26 cents.
Mhm. So when you're in the 30-cent range, instead of 100,000, you're gaining about 585,000.
I mean, we do have we do. I'm not, not what I'm saying, let's just make them higher, but we do have very low.
I need everybody to know, Haslet, Texas is in the bottom 12% state of Texas on your tax rate. That's not a bragging thing when we're looking at our streets are falling apart and we're not doing the maintenance we need to do. I mean, oh, what that percentage increase is?
It's
I think we have that already.
It's
What
about
is that, Marcy?
27.
It's a 27% increase. But that's the
Over
election.
the
That's why we
current
need
years.
the election.
Over the current year's no new revenue rate.
So, last year our property values
Yes.
surprisingly. I mean, I was
Well-
stunned. This year, I believe they're going to go the other way.
Mine went up.
Yours went up. I think overall, which was not, remember you, an odd
Right.
occurrence.
Well, they went up. The property values went up. But that makes the rates go down. When we calculate the no new revenue rate, it's that
So-
inverse relationship between your valuation. So I do believe we'll have more in new construction this year than we did last year. Maybe not. There might have been more industrial in last year's new build than there would be this year. I'm not sure, but when your valuation goes up, your tax rate goes down because it's spread, over more properties.
I know each year for like, we've gone up the rate. Roll back. Trying to, too low, you get low. So,
Kind of where we are. Well,
yeah, especially if we go down.
right now it's reasonable to get out of that hole. And okay, let's get up to where we need to be. It's not such a large step to get. And then we can move forward, and with the new plans we have in place, like doing scheduled replacements, we start planning for this thing and not wait till failure and go, oh, I need a $500,000 truck. Well, we could have known. But those are the things we'll all be working together and developing and putting out there. in place. So each year we know what's coming. And we can see into the future, will 3.5% get us there? Or we're going to need to look at, maybe we need to go 4 or 4.5. Well, if they do that, we need an election. But we've already talked about every one of these budget sessions from now on for each succeeding year ought to be set up with the election calendar in mind. Because you don't know, in future council, you know, if 3.5.
Have we ever had, I just don't know, have we ever
No.
had an election in Haslet?
But this is the first time, in 2 years? It was 2 years ago, 3.5% was put on us. Okay, usually we could go up to 8% increase and not ask a question. And that's why this is so unique. Well, listen, y'all want to take a 10-minute break? Let's take a 10-minute break. It is 8:27 p.m. Felt that, like that seat was up there on my shoulders. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's resume the workshop. It is 8:38 p.m. Let me make some just general remarks. One, I want to propose that we close or adjourn our meeting by 9 o'clock. The other is that if you have any final questions for Mr. Rogers, and with regard to all those funds that, project, go ahead and ask them now. But I want to make a general comment just overall. In our general fund, we'll have our projected reserve will be, round numbers, $3.2 million. In water and sewer, round numbers, but very close, is $3 million. So together, we're looking at about $3.2 million reserve that we have of cash that we would have. Now we're looking at requesting possibly doing a total CO, for everything across the board we're looking at, of $3.7 million, round number. So 3.7, and we got 6, so we almost got twice as much in reserve that what we'd be asking for, that we would go out to borrow. At any point in time, you got enough funds, you just go pay that thing off tomorrow if you want it. But I just wanted to couch this thing. We're not upside down. We're not the other way. We're not going out to look at borrow money more than what we could pay off tomorrow. So that's a very good position to be in. I'm sure many municipalities would love to be in that position. So I just wanted to kind of couch that. So I want to suggest, maybe we wrap up with David Rogers this evening. But any particular questions? I know you might. And then tomorrow we need to tackle the other funds, which would be primarily the general fund items, and any. And I would expect, probably, if there's projects or items that each of you do not want to see, then we'll take a vote on it, and see where we land on.
So on the debt obligation, can we go in, because it's already less than what the 3.7 is. I feel we talked about if we don't want the basketball court columns.
Sure.
Or if we do decide to do the lease, and so some of these things, and the $85,000 for the Bobcat, so it's actually less. If we could see what that number is, that we're working with. And then Marcy had mentioned some items that, you said some items could possibly come out of that and go into water. What items were? So I just wanted to get a more updated.
Why don't we go ahead and address the dressing out the columns at $130,000 now? Who is in favor to the columns on the community bridge? What's the name of that building? Basketball columns. And how much was it? $132,000. Who's in favor of doing that? Just show of hands. I don't see anybody, so it sounds like we can take that one out. And so, Marcy, we can make that change. Is there another item out there that anybody might have?
The $85,000, the Bobcat's already been purchased, so that can be taken out.
Yeah, we'll take that off. Absolutely.
I would like to go for the grant for the generators, but I would like to only have one generator on there, and I don't know how everybody else feels, and then maybe get one now, one later.
Well, let me say this: we absolutely have to have one for the water system. We have to have that. And so what we're questioning is the generator for the library. Let's just be specific about it. So you want to put that off and maybe, okay, just another time. So let me ask, okay, up and down or sideways, what do you think about the generator for the library? Now, I'm going to make a comment. You got a lot of assets over there in that library that need temperature and humidity control protection. And whether, I don't know what's going to happen with our Texas grid system. I haven't got a clue.
I know personally they've had to shut down just recently because we had a power outage. They had to shut the library up and go home because there was no way to keep it open.
Well,
but also you got to remember their generator might be a little more of a stretch to get a grant. The one for the water facility should be easy. That one should qualify with more than anything.
We're using a cost of $120,000, you know, for generator. Is there been other looking into other type of generator type systems? You know, for housing, they have the Generac type generators nowadays that are not near that amount. I would think that something like that could almost help somewhat.
well, I think they got a 15 or 20 ton AC system. You haven't got 15 or 20 tons on your house. That's why the generator is much larger and more expensive.
But is it the same type, is it the same expense of a generator as we would have to have for the
Possibly.
we're
It's all
saying it's
dependent.
100,
It all
120.
depends on what all we want to run. The water one, we kind of know partially, you know, close, but we're not 100%, but had to have a number of some sort. We don't know what it might take for them.
Well, let me say this. I know about generators and sizing anyway. I don't know what horsepower pumps you got out there. Do you know what horsepower pumps you got?
Those are what?
That's what you're driving the generators with.
About 20 horsepower apiece.
And you got 2 of them? 3 of them that run simultaneous?
Can run time, yeah. They're set on delays, but yes, they can.
Okay, so that generator size to run in 3 20 horsepower pump. A 15 ton, 20 ton, I don't know exactly which one it is. AC system is equivalent horsepower, it might be 30 horsepower. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. Don't got an engineer out there, maybe more, that business. But anyway, but also this would include there'd be more installation cost in a library because they're going to run the wires under, and they got foundations to go through and then wire into their system. So it's a little more complex install.
Let me be clear. I'm not against them. I want to move them to funded from another, not from debt. So I'm not, and I
So
was
it'd be a
not
reserve.
very clear when I said that. So I apologize. I would say both the generators be taken out of that, which is, $240,000. That's $250,000 moved out of the possibility of debt. So.
Well, one would come out of general fund, the library, and that you got 3.2 reserve to fund that. And the other one's out in water and sewer, and you got $3 million in reserve there, so they could. Well, no, it's a good idea.
Just getting that 3.7 number, just keep going, chipping away at it
No, it's a
until
good
it's
idea.
something more.
So both generators being funded out of their respective reserves. Yes. Any other items? Oh, wait a minute. I think I heard Warren said he'd pay for the Hugh White Road construction. Warren Rockring.
So that's 3.3 now, and you can help me sort of. And then, And then, like I said, the 500,000, can that be taken out for the vac truck since are we in agreement to lease or are we not? And what would that cost? We leave it in there? What do you take it out? What do you do?
Why don't we give him a chance to call tomorrow and come back and he can tell us?
I also had the Bobcat moving over to reserves, the 60,000 on the Bobcat. I was thinking just little things and the automatic valve. Those were the 4 things.
I agree with you, Tanya.
Okay. That's another 125,000.
And the automatic valve.
That's 3.1.
Did you say something on the complete restall of upgrading the pump sizes and getting the tank replacement at the south pump? There was potential that you could get that dollars from someplace else?
That one, no.
No, that has to be ours.
Oh, no, we didn't talk about that. Yeah. Jeez.
And all of that basically other so that 83 that all but the items that yeah. Oh.
$3,177,000 coming out of a CO. Of the 960 coming out of the reserves, 691,860 would be coming out of the general fund, and 268,200 would be coming out of the water reserve. Then, just to remind you, also we would add the first year of debt service to that, which would obviously be less. We'd have to kind of calculate a different number to add in for that debt service.
So you'll incorporate tomorrow's model using find the debt service.
And just one more time, 'cause I'm still a little unclear, I apologize. We would go ahead and get the certificate of obligation for the total amount, even though we would still be looking at EDC, ILAs.
No,
Correct? No, okay,
no,
no.
no.
So
We'll
would be-
know with EDCs and ILAs, we'll know well
Before
before we ever ask for a CO. We, for the purposes of this workshop and our budget, call it the worst case scenario, that we pay for all of it, everything. That's what this is. Correct. And we don't get a grant. So that's that worst case. What I'm talking about is that we don't get assistance from EDCs, ILA, or grant. That here's what our cost. We'll find out tomorrow what an annual payment would be, and any front end costs to execute the lease, and that would be significantly less.
Do you want to know what I marked as possible? What do you have? No, I'm still not, but I'm kidding. I'm getting better. I'm getting more comfortable. And in my mind, I'm thinking we might have an additional $500,000 for the back truck, possible $1 million for the ILA White Lane, possible 1, 2, 3, 4, $500,000 for EDC and LA, and that brings it down to like 1.3 million, which that's awesome. So I mean, I just in my mind, I'm thinking about the possibilities of what could.
Where would you find out? Like take it out of reserve?
No. I'm saying that if we, well, because you're right, it wouldn't be the full amount. It would just be. Right, you're right. It wouldn't be the full amount. The only thing would be EDC.
Hey, what we have to pay for in these ILAs
is a majority. Well, not majority. Do you think minority? Half, yeah. Yeah, material. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But
Materials
so
are
that's
a premium
three
right now.
possible. That's 400. I'm just going to do 400. 675 and 278. 1.3 million.
Well, I'm gonna make this suggestion for you to get comfortable. Is you need to go into this acting like you're not going to help. I mean, if you're, I don't think the taxpayers are going to win when they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and what the need is. And it's not like, I wanted to, nothing exotic. We're just trying to provide the very basic and get that up to snuff. Good roads, good water, good sewer. So is that go into it not planning that there's a high possibility we'll get a lot, but don't go in with that mindset. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Don't think.
Yeah. Oh, I'm curious how we can.
It's already out there.
Do you mean like the proposed budget?
Talk to your constituents. We will. I'll write up, some a letter, just like the cover letter to this budget. What this is all about, meeting needs. These aren't, wish list of desires. If you'd like to have this, I want a red tractor instead of a green tractor. I just need a tractor.
the city can put out an educational piece on this. You just can't campaign for it. So yes, you can put out, listing out everything you're going to do, what you think like on the sheet that the financial advisor gave us, they've listed all their assumptions, what they think their interest rate will be. You could present something very similar to this of what the debt schedule would be, the effect on the tax rate. You would more than likely want to show something that shows the impact, on a $100,000 home, or, whatever value you would choose to do that. You can put out a lot of information so that it's out there for the voters to look at. You just can't campaign.
I think you ought to use a $500,000 home. 100,000 are in the past. They'll never happen.
Okay. But the worksheet that I do, excuse me, that y'all have seen before, I usually have that information on there, on what the impact will be, so that this is, readily available information whenever we, run the numbers. So, you have to remember that your tax rate, you're actually going to, we were talking about how long it would take. We actually have to wait till after November 2nd before we could do any of these things that go above and beyond what our no new revenue rate is going to be. So,
I just wanted to add, we can do an education campaign, not campaign for it, but here's why we see it. But also, we'll be wise to look at what happens if the election doesn't pass. Yeah. If the election doesn't pass, what you get is one employee on a 3.5% increase tax rate. We get to hire one employee. We're asking for 7, and plus all these capital items too. That would have an additional 1 cent of rise on the tax or tax rate. So we can build an education campaign, and from my perspective, I think it's to put it out to the people. The source of this, the impetus of this has been from people. That's why I put this together this way. But the people need to bear it. And that's the opportunity. Let the people make the decision. If with that, it's 9 o'clock, actually it's 9:01. Are there any final questions for this evening? All right, we're going to update the work, our summary sheets, and to show you here's the bottom line effects, and here's what movement, and we can consider other movement tomorrow evening. But be prepared, tomorrow's our closing night for the workshop. Be prepared to address whatever you so desire, and we'll get them going. If you got questions during the day that you want to email, please, copy me, Mr. Quinn, and Marcy, so we all three have them, and we'll make sure we'll try to get that information to you during the day. And but if anything else, we'll have it for you tomorrow evening. With that, anybody have any closing comments they'd like to make? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? There's a second. All in favor, say aye. 4-0, I have it. Motion passes. It's close the workshop at 9:02 p.m., please. Thank you all.